Good evening. A major new government scheme to find work for the long-term unemployed has failed to meet a key target. Just 3.5% of those who joined the work programme found a job which lasted 6 months or more. Labour says the scheme is a mess, but ministers claim it is on the right track, as our Home editor Mark Easton reports.
Everything's just been going just really well.
Amy is what the work programme is all about. Out of employment for years, she joined the scheme almost the first day it began in the summer of 2011. It took 12 months to get her job ready, but for the last 6, she's been working as a receptionist.
They got me loads of interviews and things like that, and then some work placements and things like that. So it gave me something on my CV, and from there I've got where I am now, a comfortable job where I can easily see myself growing.
The idea is radical. Instead of a taxpayer-funded scheme to get the long-term unemployed into sustained work, private and not-for-profit organisations, like the Salvation Army here in Birmingham, are contracted to do it, paid by the state only if they get results. It's a critical part of the government's plans to reform welfare and boost economic growth. But today we got the official figures for the first full year of the scheme, and that's led plenty of voices to question whether the work programme is actually working. So what do the figures show? In the first 12 months, 878,000 were referred to work programme providers. 31,000 of those were employed for at least 6 months. The government's minimum target was for 5.5% of the total to have been helped. Today's figures suggest it's actually 3.5%, with some saying it's even lower than that. Labour leader Ed Miliband says the figures are so bad, more people might have been found work if the scheme didn't exist.
These figures show that the work programme isn't working. In fact, it's a miserable failure. And the reason it's a miserable failure is because the government is not showing its responsibilities to make the work available for people.
Government ministers remain convinced the work programme will hit its targets by the end of the second year.
Jonathan, hi, how are you? Nice to see you. How are you?
With growth lower than forecast and high unemployment, it's been particularly difficult to get young people into sustainable jobs, they say. However, some private sector firms are accused of coasting and have been sent warning letters.
Where companies don't succeed, we have the contract set so that other companies can expand to fill that space. So the good companies will eventually be able to take over those areas of contracts if the other companies don't succeed.
I've been there for almost 3 weeks.
Homeless a few months ago, a housing association contracted under the work programme recently helped Sam find a much-needed job. He works between 11:30 at night and 3 in the morning, washing dishes at a distribution centre in Burton-on-Trent. A small step for some, but a giant leap for Sam.
Look at me, I have got now 2 jobs and a flat, thanks to the work programme helping me out. And everyone else says job's just a job. It's not, it's a lifestyle.
Whitehall sources suggest more recent figures will see the numbers on the scheme employed for over 6 months more than double, putting the work programme back on track. But for Sam and a million others, it's not about numbers, it's about turning lives around. Mark Easton, BBC News.
So where does all this leave one of the government's major reforms? Let's talk to our Deputy Political Editor, James Landale at Westminster. James, how do you see it, and how damaging are these figures today? Put them in context for us.
Well, Hugh, in public, ministers insist everything's on track. In private, there is more concern. And that's because once you strip away all the arguments about which statistics and targets you choose, it's pretty clear that at best, there are big teething problems for this scheme. At worst, it's just not working properly. And that matters for the government. First of all, because this is a big experiment. They want to take this idea of using the private sector to deliver public services, paying the companies by results, and apply it to other areas. They want to use it to stop prisoners reoffending. They want to use it to stop drug addicts going back onto drugs. And if there are doubts about the basic model, can the contracts work? Is it too expensive? Can the companies actually deliver? And that's a big problem. Secondly, I think more importantly, this is one of the government's big-ticket public sector reforms. This is what this government came into being to do. It's to take people off the unemployment roll and into work. They want to tackle the benefits bill. They want to deal with the deficit. There's a huge amount at stake. This is a government that wants to go to the voters at the next election and say that it's reformed education, it's reformed health, and yes, it's reformed welfare. On the basis of today's figures, that last issue is very much work in progress.
OK, James, thanks very much. James Landale there for us at Westminster.